Alright, you may be wondering what I'm doing right now, which looks really weird around the tail lights. The new LED tail lights are actually not quite as tall as the old ones, therefore they don't cover all the imperfections of the fiberglass. Some of it had some surface fiberglass that had come off so you could see the fibers. So what I've done is measured how much smaller these are, and I've taped off. I'm using my 3M marine adhesive sealant to actually cover any of the fiberglass imperfections that you're gonna see, because these won't cover. So we're gonna let that dry for just a minute, then we're gonna peel all that off. Hopefully it'll look somewhat decent, and that way later when I put my new tail lights on, it won't be as obvious that they're smaller and not covering the imperfections. If you guys can see all this right here, it's where the surface of the fiberglass had peeled off and you could see the fibers. So this is what we're all covering up, because the new tail lights only go to about the top of that hole. Seals up the fiberglass right there, and at least it'll be, this one won't be quite as noticeable because the license plate comes out over it. That one will be a little bit, but I think it looks better than the thick eternabond tape. Alright, and just like that, we've got our window sealed, we've got our compartment door sealed. I like to use the blue tape because I didn't want any weird looking white caulking on the frame, and then I didn't want to smear all this paint thinner all over it and maybe fade the frame even more. So all you got to do is, I taped off the frames, and then I got a little paper towel, put some paint thinner on it, and just wet my finger and went over the caulking. Looks absolutely awesome. So now what we're gonna get to is we're gonna do the lights up top. We're gonna cut them. And I discovered these, which I'm sure a lot of you know about these, but they are awesome. You can put you can splice a wire, put them in there, and then put your connecting wire in there. Totally awesome. And then I'm going to put a piece of electrical tape around it. So let's get started on that. All right, let me show y'all what I've had to do. As you can see, this is like a dome because it used to be a circle, and I had to continue to cut down a little bit to get my wire connectors into there because they wouldn't fit. It used to look like this, where it was just a round hole. But on these end ones, because I reinforced the interior, if you saw that in video 2, I believe, I put another ledger bar all the way across to attach up higher so it would have more rigidity. So what I had to do is cut down a little bit below that bar and then push my connectors down in there. I've got all the lights in. I just got done testing them and they all work. They do have a little corrosion, so I'm probably gonna have to clean those up, as they wanna sometimes go off and come back on, but it's just the connection between the bulb and the outlet there, the part it connects to. But I definitely ran into some challenges because I put that cross beam that goes all the way across, an extra added support, which kind of got in the way of this one and then the one way down there at the end. The two higher up ones up here, the 3 ones, those did not interfere, but the other one did. So it took a little finagling, a little extra cutting of the fiberglass and everything. But as you can see from the outline, this outline here is the marker light cover, so it'll be fine. We'll seal everything up. We should be all right there. So we've got our light covers here. What I did is I took some butyl tape and basically put a probably a 1-inch square on the back of each screw hole, so when I screw it in, at least it'll have a seal around that. And then what we're going to do after we put our light in is go around this with a bead of the marine adhesive sealant, and after we do the screws, and we should be good. But my brake light worked over here. Okay. All right, that one looks good. So this one is not. So I need to figure out if I disconnect. Okay. I have brake light with that one.
Do you have your 4-ways on?
Yes. Should be white to white. So I have disconnect that. I got no running light. To red, so it's got to be something up there in my battery box that I don't have hooked up right. Yellow is reverse lights, and I don't have a reverse light. See, look.
Yeah.
Even got my light for my tag.
Good.
That's all got to be. It's got to be something up there. So I think everything's wired correctly. All right, so what we've got is our bottom trim piece sitting on the back bumper there. I've cleaned it off. I'm actually reusing the one that was original because it was still straight, and I only bought 3, one for each side and then one for the top, hopefully. So I can reuse the bottom one because it's still straight, there's no damage. We've already caulked on the inside of it and all the screw holes. So my wife's gonna actually hold it onto the middle where it's centered, and I'm gonna get underneath and start screwing in all these screws. Now I'm not using your typical RV 1-inch screws with the square head. I'm actually going to use a wood screw that has the star attachment to put it on, and they're actually 1 1/4 inches. So hopefully this will actually hold better and it won't corrode over time if it does get any rain or anything on it. So we got our reused bottom trim put in.
I got the adhesive sealant caulk all put down. Looks super good. It's coming along. Now we're going to move on to the sides. Alright, so I'm not sure if anybody has looked for corner pieces on the back of your RV. All of them are different, even the same years, they have different styles. So mine has these. So it just goes on the corner cap, you put screws in here, the top on the corners, and your corner pieces just go up under slightly so that when water runs down, it runs over and runs down instead of running into. So what I've done, instead of buying some and they don't fit or they're not the right size, I've cleaned them up really good, and we're just gonna spray them with leak stopper white rubber flex. It's gonna make them look new, and it's gonna seal up any cracks and everything like that that's in these, and we're gonna let these dry good and put our corner pieces up while these are drying. Okay, so for attaching the side metal molding, what I'm using is Deckmate. They are number 8 by 1 5/8. They come with a T20 Torx. These are actually made for the PVC style decking. They have 2 different style of threads on the screws to start it in and then to hold it. And these are 1 5/8. These are 2-bys in here, so it's 1.5 inches plus whatever little bit that's on the outside. So it should come just to the edge of that 2-by inside there, and it'll hold really good because it's going in. It's not those 1-inch small regular screws with the square head bit to where it's going to lose grip if it gets any type of wet or anything. These are going to go all the way through those 2-bys, so it's going to grip really well. And the head on them is round and somewhat shallow, so it's going to sit real nice and tucked into that piece of molding. All right, so we're back to do our final trim piece on the top. Now what we've had to do, you can tell here I've got some 6-inch basically lag screws with a Torx head on it. If you remember from one of my previous videos, I think it was the first video probably, or the second video when I did the framing, on the corners up here was where the leaking had occurred. And I basically, when I built the whole new frame, I basically built a new ledger to go across to screw into the bottom of the good ledger board and down here. And so basically I wanted screws long enough that when they went through, they were going to attach to a good board and not a rotten board, because I didn't necessarily remove them. That was part of the roof. So what we did is we found 6-inch by 1/4 inch screws, and I just drilled out the last 3 holes on each end where they're going to actually go through the rotten wood and hopefully attach to the good ledger board that I put in. I had to do a little bit of finagling, as you previously saw, where I had to take down the head because the head was just big enough and I would not have been able to get my rubber covering inside this board if I would have left the head as big as it was. If you can see here, that I made the head of this bolt a lot smaller. Alright, so what we're going to do is put our 3M marine adhesive sealant on the piece that gets the screws. We're going to keep the other piece probably open. That way, any water that gets into there can actually just drain down. All right, now that that's done, we're gonna take this. I will need help getting my drill and that little box of screws. I need those screws from you, Preston. Thank you. Yes, thank you. Oh, it fell. Nicely done. And these are the 6-inch bolts that you saw earlier where I was trimming the head down. That way they would fit in the track well, and I could put the rubber molding over them and it would fit really good. These grabbed really well also, so I was happy to see that. Here is the finished product, guys. As you guys can see, it is all put back together. I have my light covers on, I've got the trim put up, windows and compartments are in, everything's sealed off. I have the corners up there, and on the other side is all done. I'll take you in for a closer look. I did not film how to put the small molding up over the trim because that's kind of a given. It was very easy to do, took me about 15 minutes to do it, but it's one continuous that starts at the bottom and goes all the way around the top to the other side. And then I have the corner pieces done. The corner pieces at the very top are all, they're screwed into the front but not the top, and then I filled them with the putty. Now, I don't know if you guys can see, but I have to point it out. There's a couple little wrinkles right there, and I think one little one here maybe. But overall, compared to what it was, saggy and all falling apart with deteriorated wood and insulation coming out the bottom, everything was not sticking. I think it looks really, really good. And I'll go over a price comparison here in a few minutes on showing you how much it costs to do this from start to finish, including everything, the extras that I got, and how you can keep it under the amount that I actually did it in. All right, without taking too much more of y'all's time, we're going to go over a build list and cost of what it took to totally replace that back RV rear wall. And this is going to differ a little bit depending on where you go for your prices. I did most of my shopping at Home Depot or Lowe's. That's easier to get to and easier to find all my things. Sorry for the unprofessionalism, but I know everybody has their notes on their phone, but I sat down one night and got all my receipts and started jotting everything down. So let's start with pretty much the framing. As you saw, if you didn't see in video 1 or 2, it's made up by 2x2s. So I redid it all by 2x2x8s, keeps cost down, keeps weight down, and that was the way it was originally done. I just made some improvements on that. So I ended up buying 17 2x2x8s, which cumulatively it cost $82.45 for all those. I bought various mending plates, which ended up I put in like corners and things to hold it, maybe make it a little more rigid. That was about $5 worth of mending plates. I bought luan, which is the pieces that go on the very back of the 2x2 framing, and that's what your fiberglass attaches to. Those I bought 2 of those for the back rear of the RV, and that was $27.76. I ended up buying multiple boxes of different screws, not knowing what I was going to use. Ultimately, I ended up using, it was 2 or 3 different boxes of screws, but that came out to about $18.25. I bought 2 1-inch by 4 foot by 8 foot insulation. Those were not necessarily cheap. They're around $26 a piece, so that was $53.94 for 2 of those. I bought some Minwax hardener, as you saw with the top on one of my videos. It was somewhat deteriorated, so I was trying to harden it up a little bit to have something solid to sit on. That was $15. Spray foam gap filler, where I sprayed some foam in the corners where there was some wood deteriorated. I let dry out, and then I filled it with wood filler, trying to fill that void, make it a little more rigid without replacing roof panels. That was $8.48. I got some white Flex Seal, which I ended up using in various areas, maybe on edges of the 2x2 framing, so if any water hit it, it would not deteriorate or start rotting the wood away. That was kind of a cheap insurance. That was $12.98. Metal nail stops. Those were where I was putting the wires that were going through the wall that was going to the receptacles in the back bunk room. You put those over to keep from hammering any nails or anything hurting the wire and breaking the wire. So I bought 3 of those. Those were $1.50 total. My Kobalt roller, which was the roller I used on the fiberglass, where we were sitting there pushing the fiberglass onto the luan, trying to make it adhere really good and solid. That was almost $21. The 3M High Strength 90, that was what I used to attach the luan to the frame and then the fiberglass to the luan. I bought that when it was a good price. I ended up buying 6 cans of that. It's the High Strength 90. I bought it at about $15 a can. When I went back on there to look about ordering it, it had gone up to almost $24 a can. So I ended up going to Walmart and buying just a slightly smaller bottle for like $12.98, which saved me some money. So six cans of that were $90. 3M marine adhesive sealant, that's what I've been using to seal up all my panels, to seal up my window. After I got the butyl tape, I ran some of that over the top of the LED tail lights, down the new trim that I got. I did all that inside the trim and then on the outside corner to make sure. No, that was the marine adhesive sealant, 3M. Love that stuff. I only ended up having to use 2 basically caulking tubes of that. But that stuff's not cheap. It was $20 a can, so I spent $40 on that. The eternabond tape, I got 4-inch by 50 foot, and I split it down the middle, so I made 2-inch strips. That went under, after I applied my fiberglass, I put that under to ensure that there was no water leakage underneath my trim as well. So just another insurance, so that I don't, for years to come, I don't have to worry about that. That eternabond tape was $60. Recpro RV screws, which are the small 1-inch screws that have the square inset where you can use a square bit. I bought 100 of those thinking I was going to use a lot of them. I ended up using different screws to adhere better and pull more into the frame. So I didn't use as many. I used a lot of those screws on other little areas like the window frame. I replaced all those screws and stuff like that. But those Recpro RV screws, 100 of those was $10. All right, so that would conclude everything you need to replace your RV rear wall. Now, the sum of that was about $465. Not bad at all. I reused my rear fiberglass, and that's about it, because I even got new tail lights. Now, here's the difference in mine versus what you might have had to do, which added cost to mine. I added an RV compartment door, as you saw. It's 18-inch high by 24-inch wide. I added that because I had no rear access to my RV, to the bunk room. Because this big slide that I'm sitting on now is a living room slide. It slides all the way up to the wall where the bunk room is, and it blocks the door, and the door swings into the living room. So you can't get to it unless you pull this slide all the way out. I didn't want to do that. As you can see behind me, I can't do that because I have a wall and then a big fence behind me. So I don't have room to do that. So that door was $116.36. That's with shipping. I bought that, I believe, off of Amazon. And that ensured I can get to that bunk room if I ever need to do anything without having to pull this RV out and do all that. I also bought the LED taillights that you saw. I bought those off of Amazon. It does not have backup lights, reverse lights, which I knew. I wasn't worried about it because apparently a lot of people are going to these lights in the reviews and not worrying about their backup lights. This is a 35-foot rig. I figure if I need to back up and I'm not sure, I'll have my wife get out there and help me out in the mirrors. Those RV tail lights were $40. Not a bad price, to be honest with you. They look really good. The WAGO splicing connectors, as y'all saw in the video, I use these new splicing connectors. Well, they're not really new, but they are. I like them. They're not as bulky as the wire nuts, and you stick them in and you just close the clamp and it's done. So I use those on everything. I had to buy another set of those because I ran out, but those were $13.45. One other thing that I got that a lot of people may not have to get is the trim. The metal trim that goes all the way around to finish your RV off. I had a couple dents in one of my trim legs. And I'm not sure how they got there. They didn't look that old, but I don't remember hitting anything. But they were pretty significant dents. I said, you know what, I'm just going to, they're original. Everything was original. That back wall had never been done, and this is in 06. So that was 16 years ago. I went ahead and bought all new trim other than the bottom trim, because the bottom trim, nothing bothers that, and it was still straight. It looked good. I just cleaned it up. So 3 trim pieces. Each one of those was $34 a piece. Where they get you is it has to go freight because you can't bend it, and it was 8-foot long pieces. So shipping also with that, so you got $34. That's $100 for 3 pieces that I ordered, but shipping was $65. So all said and done, I basically paid $165 for 3 trim pieces. So all in all, with all of the original things that you need to replace it, and then my extras on the compartment door, the LED tail lights, and the splicing connectors, and the RV corner trim for my 3 sides, it took my cost from $465 up to $781. All in all, it's probably still a great deal. I reused my rear fiberglass piece, which is probably a $500 piece, I'd say. And all the labor I did myself. I did it over about a 4 to 5 week period probably. Luckily we had mostly sunny weather, but all in all, It cost me $781.51 from start to finish. I think that's a pretty good deal. I didn't get any quotes on having it done because I think it would have cost me about $3,000 to have it done. So I hope this video series has helped anybody that's unsure if they want to do this or what they're getting into when they do actually do it. If you have any comments, please put them in the comment section below. I will respond to them. If you have any questions, something I might have not shown or explained very well, let me know. I'll respond back. Otherwise, if you haven't seen the other videos, go check them out. Like the video. Subscribe to me. I'm trying to do upgrades. We're doing little RV trips. So I hope you all enjoyed this video series. We'll see you later.